accepting to participate on this, because it's a great contribution towards Burundi and Burundi future, and also the church as at large. And also thank you for being a missionary in Burundi in those early years. Yeah. So as a young generation, we are wondering what happened, how it looked like, because we keep being hit by so many endless information here and there, and then we'd like to have like something to put our hands on. And that's why when we meet people like you who have been able to go to Burundi for those early years, for us it's a great opportunity. It's a great contribution towards our country's reconciliation process. So I'm very happy to have you and to talk to you, talk to the wide audience, even the Burundi who are going to listen to you, to listen to this video, because they are going to get one or two things that are going to, edify their lives. So Don, I'd like just to introduce you as just give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, who you are, your profession, your family, etc. Thank you. Welcome, Don.
Well, I'm Don Quincy.
Yeah.
Something is sounding goofy. As a young person, I was in 7th or 8th grade. I felt like God was calling me to be a missionary in Africa. And so I went to, I wasn't planning to go to college or even go to high school, because in Montana where I grew up, all you had to do was finish the 8th grade. But that meant that I had to go to high school. And then I went to college, came out here to Portland, Oregon, to a school called Cascade College. And while I was there, I was praying as to what the Lord would have me to do. And there was 3 different things that seemed like were logical. One would be medical work, one would be education, and one would be working with the church. And I felt like the Lord led me to do the 3rd one, to work with the church. So I went to seminary, and I was part of, at that time, of the Evangelical United Brethren Church, and it looked like they were going to merge with the Methodist Church. And so leaders counseled me that I shouldn't apply with the Evangelical United Brethren Mission Board, but that I should look at some other organizations. And I chose World Gospel Mission. They had work in Kenya, Burundi, and in Egypt. And so my wife and I applied to WGM, and we just kind of told them that we felt like God was calling us to Africa. And we applied in 1963. Early 1964, we went and met with the board, and they then they assigned us to Burundi. And so we felt from that very day that we were told that we were assigned to Burundi, that was God's will, and we were looking forward to it, and began raising the support we needed so that we could go out there. We went to Belgium in January 1965, just French, and then we went to Burundi in September of 1965, and we served there as missionaries until 1979.
Wow.
And we have 4 children. 2 were born here in the United States, and 2 born in Burundi.
Wow. Welcome. Yeah, that's good news. So you have 2 Burundi and the other ones too. My goodness.
Yeah.
That's great. So as a missionary, how was the missions work in post-colonial Africa, and also in particular in Burundi? How did it look like? Is it like today's missions work?
Oh no, it was small. It was struggling. I know that one of the challenges, well, the church we were working with in Burundi had a rule that new converts needed to go through training, and a lot of it was teaching them how to read, and it was a 2-year process, and it seemed like what was happening was that once they finished that, they thought they had everything that they needed, and they dropped out of church, and so we had to work on changing some things. We shortened the length of time, but we wanted to communicate to the people that just because they had finished this training wasn't that there was still a lot more that they needed to do and to grow in. And so the last 4 years that we were there, we saw some significant growth and things happening that way.
Yeah. So was the response from the people encouraging? Were people responding to the gospel message?
The Burundi are very friendly people. They were open to the gospel message, but it seemed like there was the thought, well, if I can complete these 2 years of training, then I've got everything I need. And so I their the certificate they got as a member,
Yeah,
had to have was that when they died, they would just present that and they'd get into heaven. And it seemed like we needed to have a different emphasis, and that the Christian walk is an ongoing walk, and we're growing and learning all along the way.
Yeah. So do you have some numbers, like the literacy numbers by then in the population, or were there some intellectual people, and how was the literacy levels by then?
I'm sure I had that at one time, but now I don't have a clue.
Yeah.
There was, just apart from those who went through school, well, most of the people didn't know how to read or write.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's good. So those indigenous people who are trained, like qualified pastors, are you still in touch with them? Did you get in touch with them even after that in '79 or something?
I've kept contact with a few, and there's one man that he and I text each other on a weekly basis, a regular basis. So
Wow.
we're still in contact.
Yeah. So
there are others that I have contact with maybe once or twice a year.
yeah. Wow, that's good. So what region was the World Gospel Mission centered or focusing its missions in Burundi? Which area? Which part of Burundi?
We were on the eastern side of Burundi.
That's Ruyigi or something?
Yeah, it was Ruyigi province, not the full province, but most of what would be on the Comoso side.
Yeah.
And we had a mission station at Marori. We had another one at Murehe.
Yeah.
And then we also started one at a place called Buhonga. So Murehe and Buhonga were pretty much down in the Comoso. Marori and Kayero were up in the highlands, but when I went to Bujumbura and talked with people there, they said I still sounded like a Comoso.
So were you able to speak some Kirundi words as you speak to people, different people in different areas? And
oh yeah, we learned Kirundi, and what we should have done is after we got into Burundi from Belgium, we should have spent a year just using the, and so that we would get more accustomed to that and felt more comfortable with it. But we just immediately plunged into Kirundi study, and so I always felt much more comfortable with Kirundi when all of the people, pretty much that were in government in the Rigi province knew that I knew Kirundi better than French. And we would greet each other in French, but we would just switch to Kirundi. When I would go to an office down in Bujumbura, I would begin greeting them in French, and then I'd ask, can we talk in Kirundi? And they were kind of surprised that there was a white man that knew Kirundi, and they were happy. When our youngest son, when he was born, and he was little, I would often take him with me. And so I would go into an office. Secretaries, they wouldn't pay any attention to me. They would pay attention to him. They'd take him by the hand and lead him around and talk to him and all kinds of things. And then they'd kind of come back and say, oh, was there something you wanted?
Yeah, because of the language. Oh my goodness. So now, how many churches did you have in general? Were you involved in church planting or evangelism or discipleship or even counseling or something like that?
I worked more. I worked with the church in I will say evangelistic services in existing churches, and we were attempting to plant new churches. We weren't as successful with it the first 8 to 10 years as I had really hoped we were. The last years, 4 or 5 years, we saw significant growth and planting of churches and increase in membership and baptisms and things that way. But the first years were pretty sparse.
Yeah. So what other missions agencies that were around apart from your World Gospel Missions? Were there some other mission agencies?
Yeah, another part of the Ruigi province, there were the Quakers,
Yeah, Quakers.
or the Friends, depending on,
Yeah.
and then there was the Free Methodists, and World Gospel Mission was invited to come to Burundi because the Free Methodists felt like they had more. They were asked. The area was too big for them, and they needed more help, and so we worked with them. And then there was also the Danish Baptist and the Anglican Church in other parts of Burundi. We weren't close to them. Down in the southern part of Burundi, there was the Pentecostal work, but it was pretty much focused down there in the southern part of Burundi.
Mm. So how did your mission end in Burundi? Which year was that, and have you been back since then?
It was in, I don't remember the date, but it was in June of 1979.
Yeah.
The commissar from Rutana came to our station at Cairo, and we were given the notice that I'll say we were undesirable people, and we had 48 hours to get out of Burundi. We were told we couldn't talk to anyone, tell anyone anything, which we couldn't abide by that because, for one thing, the church kept a lot of their funds in our house because it was safer there than some other places. And so I had to tell people that we'd been expelled from Burundi and had to give the money to them, had to turn other things over to them. We went to church. We got the notice on Saturday. We went to church Sunday morning. And after we had our noon meal, we left to go down to Bujumbura. But I had told the people that I was not going to get on a plane that would take me to Europe because two of our kids were in high school in Kenya, and I was going to go to Kenya. And so we didn't leave. It was 72 hours before we left Burundi, but we flew then to Nairobi.
Wow. So the notice, was it politically motivated or some religious beliefs, or what was the reason behind that?
I think what was happening was that the Burundi government and the man who was president at that time was wanting to have more things under the Burundi government, and so they were wanting to take over for the schools to come under
I see.
And the Catholic Church was the strongest church group in Burundi, and they were not pleased with that, and so they opposed the president. And there were some things that were being said publicly and on the radios and things that way. And I think the president was focusing more on the Catholics. And then I think, when his expulsion order was really for the Catholic missionaries. But then when someone said, well, how come only Catholics? Then some of us Protestants got expelled as well. There was on the flight on Monday morning, I think there were around 40 Catholic missionaries who left the country.
Wow.
And I talked with the president. I've met that president since then, and we talked about it. And he said, well, he did some things when he was young, because I think he was only 32 when he was president and expelled the missionaries. And he said, I did some things then that I would have done differently now. But he was no longer president, and all of those things were passed.
Wow. Yeah. I know it's not a secret to say that was under the Second Republic. That was Jean-Baptiste Bagaza as president.
No.
Yeah. Because in '79 it was Bagaza, and Michombero came from 66 up to 76.
Well, right now I don't have that in my head, so
yeah. Okay, yeah. So now let's go back a little bit in 1972. That's April 1972, where there's this tragedy where Burundi just got this tragic event. So many people disappeared. What was there? Tell us, how was it? How was the country? Because it seems that the World Gospel Missions was around.
Yeah, we were there, and it was that we knew that there was tension in the country because of things that were being said on the radio and things that were being reported otherwise. And so we knew that there was tension. We, on a Saturday night, we had gone down to visit some missionaries who were going to be leaving on Sunday.
Yeah.
When we got back to our house, there was, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 Africans who were there, and they told me that there was some trouble over at the local commune, and that there had been people, and at the local market, and there were people who had been injured, and they were wanting me to take them over there to bring the injured into the hospital, and then to go into Changuzo to call the police. I told them, you know, I didn't carry my I didn't carry my driver license with me or my keys, you know, when I was just around Marori, because you didn't need it there. We weren't driving or doing anything. So I had to go in the house to get my driver license and the keys. And when I came back out, they made the decision, no, we're not going to go over there. We just want to go in and call the police. And so we took off and we're heading into Changuzo. And we were about half the way there when there was a band of men across the road, and the road was blocked. I noticed two things stood out to me. One, that they were all carrying machetes, which wasn't too unusual for a man to carry a machete in Burundi, but they all had a band around their head, and that was something I never saw.
So they had the bandos on their head like this.
Yes, yes, and they were, you know, they were just all across the road. So I stopped, and they came up and wanted to know what we were doing, and we said there had been some trouble out in the commune, and we were going into Changuzo to notify the police. And later I was told by the governor that there was some of the people were wanting to kill all of us, but the leader of that group said, no, I was told we were only supposed to kill Burundi who won't cooperate with us. And so they parted and let me drive on through with the people that were in the car or in our pickup with me. And so we told the police, and then we went back home, and you know, then things were erupting all across the country.
Yeah. So were these people Burundians or some foreigners who just come in, or rebels? How can we call them? What was being said around the people? Was it?
I think they're Burundian, because I think everything was being talked about in Kirundi.
Okay. So what were the bandos that they had on their head of red color or blue or black or something?
Red.
Red.
Yeah.
I know. Okay. Wow. So when these things happened in Ruyigi, how did this impact your missions? How did these tragic events in 1972 impact your work in Burundi?
Well, when it was all done, I'll say, or, you know, I shouldn't say that, but there was only one ordained African pastor left. And so that for us missionaries, we had to pick up a lot of things that way. I hadn't been baptizing people. I hadn't been marrying people, because African pastors were doing that. So I baptized quite a few people in the next months, and I did some weddings, you know, just quite a few different things that way that I hadn't done. There had need for me to do before. And so there was several years that it took before we got additional people trained and ordained and they could be given those positions and responsibilities.
Mm. So you had to jump in and just be a missionary pastor.
Exactly.
Wow. So if you are in total, how many people did you lose in your church or in your missions towards that conflict?
I don't know how to answer that question. It was primarily the leadership people, but
Did you have any victims at all? Did you lose any people in the church?
oh yeah.
Do you remember their names or something like that?
Oh yeah. Some of them, I don't remember all of them, but yeah.
Yeah, like how many pastors, even their work in their position in the church or in the missions?
Well, some of them fled Burundi. They went over into Tanzania because they saw what was happening in Burundi.
Yeah.
But there were others that, they lost their lives. I mean, they were picked up and taken and they never came back home.
So sad. So yeah, it's very tragic. So these people who never came home, you've been worshiping with them, they were just taken and then disappeared like that.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So no crime committed, nothing.
No, nothing that I was aware of.
Wow. That's bad, yeah.
I think it was primarily because of the ethnic group they were a part of and that they were in a leadership position.
Yeah. And this went all over the country, right?
Yes, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So let me just say, you heard what was being written around or read, or like even there's some Canadian journalist who called Cosette who said comment secourir les Hutus burundais. I don't know if you recall that kind of literature, but il y a Le Soir in Belgium that wrote about the news in New York Times. So what was being written in the media by then? How did you? Because I knew you were in the position to read. You are enlightened. You knew how the world is being run. So what was the literature by then and the media?
We didn't get much of that kind of stuff in Burundi.
Yeah.
We were up country. Maybe if a person had been down in Bujumbura, you could get gotten some of that. But we lived up country. It took, from Marori to get to Bujumbura was a 7-hour drive, and so we didn't get downtown very often. Maybe once in 3-4 months,
Yeah.
and then we were usually, we went down to take care of some business, legal matters, other things that way, the bank.
Yeah.
Go to grocery stores, purchase things, go to, if we needed whatever.
Yeah.
Buy barrels of gas, kerosene, all of those different kinds of things. Those were things that, it was more of a business trip than anything else.
So the media, there are not so many media outlets around to give you some information of what was going on in the country.
No, not much. We listened to the Voice of America, but they were very short and very brief, and they were, they didn't focus much on Burundi. They focused more on the whole continent of Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, it has been a very great burden towards Burundian life, that event, because it has really followed generations after generation up to now. But 40 years later, today, Burundians are making progress towards unearthing the truth of what happened that fateful year. So they've created a Truth and Reconciliation Commission that is doing a great job by unearthing this truth. And it's doing a satisfying job. So as a missionary who has been there, you saw Burundi then, and now you see where we are. What would you tell them to encourage them in this noble mission of putting hurting souls together? What would you say? What would you tell them just to make sure we have a pre-event Burundi or a good society?
Well, we the Burundi, it didn't make any difference what tribal group they were or ethnic group they were a part of. We were friends. We had close friends who were Hutu, close friends who were Tutsi. We didn't really have much with the Pygmies.
Yeah.
They were there was some over more in the Cairo area.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't close to Cairo, and so I just never really developed a relationship with them. But with the rest of the people, we loved them, and we certainly our desire is to see them live in a peaceful country where they can everyone can be at his best, do his best, and certainly want to see the church grow and to see many people come to saving faith in Jesus Christ.
Mm. That's good. So are you still going to Burundi nowadays? Still?
There was, well, from 79 till 92, we couldn't go to Burundi, but since then I've been back, I think 6 times. I've every time I've taught at Light University. I taught in their School of Theology, and we would spend a month to 6 weeks there,
Mm-hmm.
and just had a delightful time with the young people who were university students.
Yeah.
A couple times we were able to go up country to visit people that we knew up there.
Okay. So when you get this opportunity to visit the people up country, I'm sure it reminds you some the former Burundi or the 70s or the 60s of Burundi. What's the difference do you see?
Well, Burundi has, the population of Burundi has significantly increased.
Uh-huh.
Is that we're, just places where cattle fed and where trees were growing are now houses and villages, and that was that I was surprised to see how much change had taken place that way. Of course, when we were out there, Burundi was about, I think, 3 million people. Now I think close to 10, 11 million people.
Yeah, it's 11, almost 11, yeah.
And so that you know that they just have to build a lot more homes and do a lot more other things just for places to live and take care of themselves.
Wow. Yeah, that's tragic, because if Burundi had like 3 million people, and then according to some literature they say almost 500,000 people died in 1972. That's a big number, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's probably too high, but I don't really know. I would think that would include, well, even that would, I was going to say that would include the people who fled Burundi and went over to live in Tanzania or Rwanda or Congo. But I, of course, again, I don't know, but my sense was that it wasn't that many. There's, I think we can say there's speculation as to how many were killed, and you can some of the refugee camps over in Tanzania, there were several thousands of people over there.
So after in 1979, when you are told to pack and leave, and then you came back now to teach as a visiting lecturer in Burundi, do you think you have some leadership skills that you can share with leaders today in Burundi? What do you think is this thing that they could just be able to focus on in leadership?
Well, of course, burden. My concern would be for evangelism, and I would like to see, want to see them plant churches and to evangelize. And some of the things that the information I'm getting from my friend makes it sound like that's definitely happening. There, I think in the Marori area when we were there, there was maybe 10 or 12 churches. Now there's more than 30 churches in that area, and so
that's good.
And I don't really, I don't know about Cairo or Morehe or Bohonga, happening in those places, but I'm assuming that there was that there are churches being planted in those places as well.
Yeah, one thing that also we realize, it's like this the proliferation of independent evangelical churches. Do you think they can contribute much more towards expanding the kingdom of God? They just give us distractions.
When we were out there, there weren't very many independent churches. Some of them were, they were either Anglican or Baptist or Free Methodist or Quakers or
the mainstream churches.
Pentecostal.
Yeah.
I've heard that there are a lot of independent churches, and I don't know. I guess I struggle with some of that because sometimes it's so much just the personality of the pastor, and I don't know how well that's going to go or work. I've always been a part of a connectional system where there's a bishop or a superintendent and people under them, and that's, I feel much more comfortable with that rather than just independent kinds of things.
Yeah. Anyway, whichever way, the word of God is being preached and people are being saved.
Right. Yeah. That we praise the Lord for.
Yeah. So now, if you look, taking from your experience as a missionary, also you told me you even worked as a pastor. You jumped in as a pastor, as a missionary. Your experience, and looking at where Burundi is, what could be your final word that you'd like every Burundi to get? And also including that you're also one of the parents, you have Burundian kids in your family. What would you want to see this Burundi become, and what is the final word that you like? I'm giving you this and you can run with it.
Well, I would encourage them in their walk with the Lord, want them to read their Bibles regularly, pray regularly, be faithful in attending church and in reaching out to people in their communities, to seeing new churches established and evangelism taking place. Those would be some of the things that I would really hope would be an ongoing thing for the church or the churches in Burundi.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sure the current generation is living up to that, because now it's something satisfying to see every Sunday. It's like everyone goes to church, and which never used to be there before. I mean, between the pre 1972 and post 72. So now it's like they are connecting somewhere. The post Burundi independence and the current one. They like a lot going to church, which is, for me, I think is positive.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Thank you very much for taking your time and giving us this insightful words and conversation.
You're very welcome. Glad to do it, and I trust that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission will that there will be many good things come from that.
Yeah, they are working despite, it's also it's emanating from a political will, and there's also political aspect to it. We needed to pray for Burundi because they're having challenges here and there, like technical challenges, even financial challenges, all this. So, but Burundians have been able to gather all these means. So, as you said, prayer can do wonders.
Yeah.
and things can still opening up, because so far it's a big contribution towards that region, to see those two communities coming together and build a strong and prosperous communities.
Yeah. In all the years that we were in Burundi, I only tried to call home to the United States one time because there was a missionary sick and I needed to talk to a doctor to know just for sure what to do.
Yeah.
It was so complicated. I had to go down to Bujumbura, went to the post office. I went into a phone booth and talked to the operator there. The operator called Europe. Europe called the United States.
Oh.
It was, even though we were on phone, it was kind of like talking by radio.
Yeah.
And so, you know, the technology just wasn't there. But now my friend and I, we send texts back and forth, and there's a cell tower, you know, less than a mile from Morori where we lived, and he can pick up whatever I send to him, and he can send to me, and it just is a whole different day from a technological point of view.
Yeah, the technology has really revolutionized things and lives.
Yeah.
So let me, maybe this is just another extra conversation. Do you think technology, how much technology should we embrace as a church?
Well, it's hard to answer. You know, the last time we were there at Morori,
Yeah.
I was just amazed at all of the electronic stuff they had for their guitars, for their PA system.
Mhm.
It was just amazing to me because when we were out in Burundi, we had the drum and your voice,
Yeah.
and it's a whole different day now in that regard, and I think you know how much what you know, people are going to get into technology, and I hope that it doesn't become just the dominant thing, but you know, having good you know, guitars, good piano or keyboards, all of those
Yeah.
kinds of things I think can be helpful, but I wouldn't want them just to be. I still want to see that the Word of God is preached clearly and given, and that people are given a choice and direction.
Yeah. Yeah. So is the church that you used to work with, I think, Anglican Church?
No, it's now called United Methodist Church in
Oh,
Burundi.
United Methodist Church. Oh, by the way, you know the president of the current Senate of Burundi is also um, a legal representative of United Methodist Church.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. No.
Yeah, the current the Senate of the president of the Senate of Burundi now is
Oh,
a representative player, I think, of United Methodist Church.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
how the church and has come up, and thanks to your work, you know, it's bearing fruit now.
Well, praise the Lord for that. I
Yeah,
don't know if I can take any credit for it, but thank the Lord. I just thank the Lord for the years that we were allowed to live and to work in Burundi. Our thought when we went out there, we would live there until we were retirement age and would have to return to the United States. But
yeah,
that didn't happen quite that way. But I'm glad for our friends who are there and who are
yeah,
still there, and for the many times that I've been able to go back and to teach that at Light University.
yeah. So are you satisfied with the current promotions of or current church leadership in terms of theological content?
I don't know how to answer that. You know, that my friend that I correspond with, I'm very confident and I have full trust in him, but
Yeah,
I don't know, you know, I don't know the other leaders and things that way. I don't know for sure. You know, I don't know where they stand and what positions they hold.
Yeah. So maybe on another turn, you see Changuzo and in East, there's now a wave of Muslim coming in, Islam coming in from Tanzania or even some other people are adopting Islam. Do you think that can come as a threat to your former area, World Gospel Mission?
I wasn't. I know that Islam or Muslims just were they weren't very strong
Yeah,
in Burundi.
yeah, exactly.
They were much stronger in Tanzania.
In Tanzania, yeah.
But to cross over into Burundi just wasn't something that they were doing that much. I guess I'm not surprised to hear that that's what they're doing. I hope that the church in Burundi would evangelize them and that the Muslims would come to saving faith in Christ.
Yeah. Maybe my last curious question, church and politics. So because you see, like now we have representative legal of United Methodist Church, who is the president of the Senate in Burundi. So, and we have like the ex-president who just died, Pierre Nkurunziza, who was publicly and openly evangelizing and to the people. And we have the church, the country's leadership, all of them just going to church openly. Is this and then when you look at these Western countries, it's not like that. It's like there's a kind of a clear cut or clear limit. So do you think it's a good thing to kind of put them together or to really integrate them or just to keep the line separate? According to your experience, your readings, even your guts, your feelings, your emotions, yeah.
Well, here in America, I'm always glad when I hear that one of our leaders, our governor or whatever, senator, representative, that they're faithful in church. I thank the Lord for our Vice President, Mike Pence, and he has a clear Christian testimony.
Yeah.
I think Secretary of State Pompeo is a Catholic, but apparently very faithful and very devoted. I'm glad to hear that, and I would be happy for in Burundi that the leaders, the political leaders, would be faithful and attend and would submit to the leadership of the church.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Don.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Good day or good night. And
yeah, thank you. It's a good day actually, because I'm still having some 1 or 2 things to do here and there. Yeah, I really appreciate it. So and another